All right, so thank you for joining us. Today, our speaker is, the topic is forensic experts analysis of contractor liability. So it's a pretty lighthearted topic as opposed to what we've done in the past. So, and our speaker is Jeff Zwirn. I believe that Jeff has every acronym for every title and every accreditation that there is in the industry: CPP, CFPS, CFE, SET, FASI&T, CHPA-IV, MBAT, NFPA 3000, and in the spare time owns and operates his own alarm company as well. So apparently in his part of the country, their days are 100 hours long, as opposed to the 24-hour the rest of us get. So I'll just kind of run through his the bio real quick. Jeff is the author of the nationally recognized peer-reviewed Alarm Science Manual, which was adopted by the New York City Police Department as part of its training curriculum. He is state and federally court qualified alarm and security expert, 24-year designated expert instructor for the New York City Police Department, certified protection professional, CPP, board certified through the American Society for Industrial Security, has a certified fire protection specialist through NFPA, holds various NICET level certifications, has conducted over 20,000 hours of technical training, involved in over 5,000 security system installations, is licensed and certified in 5 states as an alarm contractor, and was awarded 3 United States patents for security systems, and is a recognized security subject matter expert by TMA, formerly known as the Central Station Alarm Association, the Security Industry Association, NFPA, and ESA, formerly known as the National Burglar and Fire Alarm Association. Frequently writes for Security Sales and Integration magazine, and is recognized by numerous colleges and universities as a would that be an adjunct professor?
No, it's SME, subject matter expert.
So with all of that, I try to keep it all to one page. So
thank you, Dale.
So with that said, I give us Jeff Zwirn.
Just
thank you, Dale. Appreciate it.
If I can, Jeff, I apologize for your interruption. Just a reminder to have everyone mute their screens. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sure, no problem. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thanks for attending. I hope that this webinar will give you some insight regarding forensic analysis of alarm systems. I've been in the industry since 1969 when I built my first alarm system after getting Radio Shack 101 kit. I was 9 years old in 1969. I've been in the alarm industry licensed and certified continuously since 1979, and I've been doing forensic work since 1980, plus operating an alarm contracting company, first in 1 state, then in 2 states, and currently operating in 2 states. So a lot of you that are listening today probably have never been sued, not really concerned, you have insurance, or maybe you are concerned, but there's really nothing you can do or nothing you think you can do to help minimize your liability. So today, I'm hoping to give you a heightened sense of awareness, because in our industry, it's just a matter of time until someone makes a claim. The first thing you need to do is take a look at the licensing regulations in the state and make sure that you are in strict compliance with all of these regulations, including the requirements of adopting NFPA 72 into the fire code or the IRC, or whatever codes that are applicable in your state. If an alarm contractor violates their statutory duties, for example, if they install an alarm system, household fire alarm system, and it's determined they violated their statutory duties. The contract is generally not enforceable because you can't violate your statutory duties and then hide behind your contract if you violate a fire code. So I want to give you one case study to start off with to give you an idea of how these cases appear. Now, Dale, do I have control over the PowerPoint? Can we get that up?
You should have control now.
Let's see. I do not see it coming on. Okay, let's see if I can get it on here. All right, I may ask Laura to come back. Give me just 1 minute. Thank you. So in any case that you have, there are always going to be 4 elements to any case. And the best time to be prepared for a liability claim is before the loss occurs. We're going to try to get the PowerPoint up. Trying to get the PowerPoint up. Yeah, I think let's see if we get this here. Okay. Okay. We're just going to try and get the PowerPoint up. Dale, can you see this now? Dale, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Hello.
Okay, I hear that phone. Everybody else can hear me?
Yeah, most of them
Yeah,
are.
we can hear you, just can't see your PowerPoint.
You can't see the PowerPoint. Hold on a second. Just try to get it on.
There we go.
There it is.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry about that.
You're talking.
Okay, so in all of these cases, these are the elements that are going to come up. So if you understand these elements, it's going to help you navigate in ways to help minimize your liability. So did the alarm contractor have a duty to properly design, install, program, inspect, test, maintain, and monitor the alarm system? Well, it depends. Did they breach that duty? Did they not properly program it? Did they not properly test it? Did they not properly maintain it? Was it not properly monitored? And was the result of the breach of that duty a proximate cause of the damages? In order for there to be a claim, someone has to be damaged. They have to allege that there's been either serious personal injury, or there has been someone has died, or they've lost personal property, or all of those things. So I want you to assume that you go into a home and the subscriber says, I want a smoke detector on every floor. And you decide in your infinite sagacity that you're going to consider that a supplementary fire alarm system. And you write in the agreement, supplementary fire alarm system. Now, the existing system consists of UL 217 single station interconnected smoke alarms. You install 3 smoke detectors, and subsequent to that, there is a fire and a claim is made against you, even though the alarm sounded, even though the remote station received the signal and retransmitted within 90 seconds, there is a lawsuit filed against you under the theory that had the alarm system been properly designed and installed, the alarm would have sounded sooner and little Johnny would not have been seriously burned. So now the question is, you've got your agreement, and in your agreement, you've got your limitation of liability, your third-party indemnification, your waiver of subrogation, your waiver of jury trial, all these terms and conditions. But one of the issues that comes up in these cases is that you cannot just write the word supplemental on your agreement, install 3 smoke detectors without complying with the requirements that are subsumed within NFPA 72. What are those requirements? If you want to deem a system supplementary, you must get a letter signed by the authority having jurisdiction that they accept that. I can pretty much assure myself, and maybe you can tell me differently, that that is not a practice that is regularly followed in the state of Ohio, because I haven't seen it in any states. So in order to minimize objections to the sale, people sell less smoke detectors under the theory that where's the best location to install 1, 2, or 3 smoke detectors? Well, you know where it is. It's right under the fire, because there's a drone connected to the UL 268 smoke detector, and it flies around the house looking for the invisible and visible particles of combustion, right? The other issue you have is that most of these wireless smoke detectors, when one goes off, they all don't go off. And then you've got the audibility. What does NFPA 72 state regarding the minimum requirements for audibility? Well, it states that it's got to be, as you know, or should know, 15 dBs above the ambient noise level at pillow, with the interior doors closed and the household appliances at night on, and your technician has to have a calibrated, yes, calibrated sound level meter and should be documenting these sound levels. That's not happening either. In addition to that, it's determined that you installed a siren driver with double stick tape, put it in the control panel, and strapped your end-of-line resistor about 1 inch from where the bell output terminals were on the siren driver. Now it's determined that the speaker opened up before the fire, notwithstanding that your designation of supplementary is not an acceptable designation if you do it yourself. So now there wasn't sufficient audibility regarding the configuration of the system. The audible indicating appliances were not supervised as is required under 72. And furthermore, there's no audibility testing that you ever performed. So unless you're installing silent fire alarm systems, you've got a huge problem, or unless it's being adopted. So this is an example of where a fire, even though there's single station smoke alarms that may have gone off or did go off, because we know that when we go into a home, when you use the word supplemental, you're not going to these smoke alarms. You're not testing them. You don't know if they're made by Sears. They look a little yellow or very yellow, but you don't know if they're installed beyond their functional, reliable life expectancy. You don't know if they've been maintained. In fact, you don't have the foggiest idea how old they are. And these are old smokes. You know, I'm not going to say they're like the Pyrotector 3040 RC smoke detector, 50-year-old smoke detector, but I would recommend and advocate that if you're going to do supplemental, first of all, that you follow the requirements that the AHJ agrees to that in writing. Why does the AHJ have to agree? Because if he didn't agree or she didn't agree, we have a lot of people throwing that word around when in actuality, it's supplementing nothing. Time is the most important commodity when it comes to fire detection. And we only have seconds, really about 2 to 3 minutes to get out. So there's a high propensity, especially if someone can't self-rescue or someone is older, that people are seriously injured or burned in a fire. I'm currently working on this Bronx fire that happened in January in Manhattan. People died in the fire. 8 of them were children. I can represent to you that the fire alarm system in that premise didn't meet Radio Shack standards, let alone industry standards. It wasn't monitored. The contractor working on the FACU or FACP was not a authorized dealer of this proprietary product. And we found 2 NAC boosters, 2 NAC outputs connected together for the audible notification appliances. So if you don't think that training or specifications or codes and standards are important, tell that to the 17 folks and their families that were dead, that died, tragically and got stuck in this building and, were found dead in these stairwells. So that's an example where you're installing one smoke per floor. You've determined that that's okay, but it's not okay. And if you need a copy of NFPA 72 that talks about it, or the section, we can get that to you. So the other problem is sometimes people install these self-contained systems, where like a link system or something like that, where the siren and the power supply and the radio is all connected and double stick taped to the wall, or maybe anchored to the wall. Well, that device can only support one sounder, and that's mounted by the exit entry door. So we're not getting the audibility. To the extent that you install a fire alarm system where you have a smoke in every bedroom and a smoke outside each sleeping area and a smoke detector on every floor, that's great. But if you don't have audibility commensurate with the minimum requirements, you're in violation. And if someone says they didn't hear the alarm, or it's ultimately quantified that you never tested for that, the liability is going to be significant. You hold yourself out to the public as experts. You knew or should have known the requirements of NFPA 72 relate to life safety. And therefore, you have a duty to comply with the licensing laws that are a condition precedent to you, allowing you to operate in the state of Ohio. Now, getting back to this electrician recommendation that should be on your contract, in my opinion, is that I think the subscribers should be involved in the agreement, that they agree to notify an electrical contractor and have that electrical contractor verify the reliability and functionality of these smoke alarms. Can you think of any disadvantage of doing that? Of course not. But if you don't know what the existing system is, and there's a fire, most likely those smoke alarms are going to be destroyed, and you'll never know. So I don't know, can the state of Ohio, can you work on 110 volt smoke alarms? Can you install them? I don't know the answer. Rich, do you know the answer? Can you, I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Can
If you're a licensed electrician.
Okay, so again, I don't know if you're a licensed electrician. I know most alarm contractors. I'm sorry?
No, I didn't really have anything to add. I'm assuming though, if it's a 110, you need to be a licensed electrician to put it in.
Right, so I would like to shift that responsibility and duty onto the owner and let the owner deal with it. Whether or not you're doing supplementary or not, it's critical that the customer take responsibility for services you don't provide. It's a concept that I've used, I've recommended, and it's very helpful. As a side note to that, if you're doing a fire alarm system in a building, I want to give you another case study where the building fire alarm system was installed. It passed final inspection. There was an audible notification appliance in every apartment. The alarm went off. No one died, but they threatened to file a claim against the alarm contractor because the building was damaged. Of course it's damaged. We're not installing NFPA 25 or NFPA 13 sprinkler suppression systems. And the building ultimately was just basically fell together and had to be destroyed. So on the installer's contract, he had come to one of my seminars and he recommended that the condo association get a fire protection engineer involved in the system design. Of course, the customer did not do that. Any disadvantage to recommending that a fire protection engineer help design the system besides what we know as alarm contractors? There's no disadvantage. It puts the burden on the condo to get potentially more information than what an alarm contractor is going to provide. In addition, the person that started the fire was a known hoarder. And of course, the fire started in the hoarder's apartment. Now, there were about 50 or 60 people in the building. No one was seriously injured. But this guy's only got $1 million of insurance. Let's talk about your insurance. First of all, you need to link yourself up with someone in the insurance industry, in my opinion, that specializes in our industry. Don't go to a generalist, go to a specialist. There are plenty of people out there. There's Alice Jackalone, there's Ralph Costa. I can give you the numbers if you don't know them. And you need to have insurance that's commensurate with the jobs you're doing. When you think about $1 million policy, and you think about the houses that you're helping to electronically detect intrusion or helping to provide some level of life safety, $1 million doesn't go very far. So I would advocate for the standard coverage, or I would say that you need at least $5 million of primary coverage. That's not a $5 million aggregate policy. In other words, if you have a $1 million policy with an aggregate of $5 million, it means you're going to have 5 $1 million claims. You need to have a $5 million policy with an umbrella on that. And the umbrella will not be expensive because the first 5 million is covered by the primary carrier or carriers. Despite having a contract, despite having an expert, despite having all the people that you need on your team, it's critical that you protect the most important thing that you've been operating, your company. And your company recurring monthly revenue is valuable, as you know. So you need to make sure that you have enough insurance. You need to read the policy to make sure there's no exclusion. So for example, some insurance policies do not cover if you put an alarm system in a liquor store. Some insurance companies do not provide coverage if you do row houses for builders. Now you may say, why a liquor store? The reason is, do you have dram shop laws in your state? Anyone know what dram shop is? So dram shop is across the country, and pretty much what it means is that if the person serving you wine or liquor, same thing, right, overserves you and that person is seriously injured or dies, the server is responsible. So therefore, because the server is responsible, there's potential that there could be some nexus to anyone that did work on that building, anyone that someone wants to sue, and therefore liquor stores are generally excluded. I have a case I'm doing right now where an air conditioning contractor was in the home, went into the master bedroom, which we call a CDP, a critical detection point, opened up the drawer in the master bedroom, took a photograph of all the jewelry in the master bedroom drawer. And you see the guy's hand. Now, how do we have that photo? Well, after he was arrested, it was on his phone. But let me take you back to what he did, and let me take you back to what I've been talking about for decades, the criticality of supervision across the board. So when he's up in the attic after he goes into the master bedroom, he decides he's going to try and disable, or he thinks he's going to disable the alarm system. He notices a siren in the attic. He takes the siren off the gable vent and he cuts the wire to the siren. Now, was that siren supervised? What do you think? Of course it wasn't supervised. And it was Berg and fire. So now 3.5 weeks goes by and he comes back and they do a home invasion on the home. Home invasion, obviously, in the home. And during the attack, the subscriber is pistol whipped and suffers a traumatic brain injury. The central station takes about 12 minutes to notify the police, and we're going to get into that in a minute under UL 827 and what's changed there. So the issue is that but for the siren being supervised, as soon as he cut that wire, what would have happened? All the keypads in the house would have gone into bell failure trouble. There would have been a signal transmitted to the remote or central station. If the customer said, I'm getting this indication, what would the first thing an alarm company do? What would they say? Anyone do any work in your home lately? Oh yeah, we had a guy up in the attic. So now the service technician comes down and he finds a siren taken off its bracket, laying on the ground in the attic. He finds a wire cut to the siren. Now what happens? Now I've got 3.5 weeks to get the police involved and investigate the circumstances surrounding what this person did. The perpetrator, the subscriber is a doctor, a gastro doctor, so it's a very high income earner. We had the opportunity to intercept these perpetrators, 3 of them. And again, the system was silent. turning supervision on or thinking that supervision is optional. It wasn't optional when we used Bright Star batteries in the day and they were at the end of the line of the protective loop circuit. It wasn't optional when we did double circuitry. It wasn't optional when we did feed and return. Supervision is not optional. And more importantly, the feature of supervision, as you know, is an inherent safeguard in the control panel set, in every panel. Therefore, what would be the disadvantage of you turning it on? Second of all, what does it cost you? So now I want you to assume that you're the alarm company being sued for failing to install the system properly, failing to properly test the system. And now it's learned how quickly it takes to take a Vista 20 and go to field 91 and put the number 1 in field 91 and strap the resistor at the end of the line. By the way, the resistor, despite the fact that it wasn't supervised the system, field 91 had an 8, which does have anything to do with Bell supervision processing. Now, we show that to a jury. Do you want to be that alarm company? And why would you not turn on? What would be the technical reason of not turning on supervision? Well, if the wire's less than 3 feet from the panel, okay. Supervision is not optional. I've had too many cases where the resistor was not properly terminated, supervision wasn't turned on, and something failed before the loss, and the customer could not and did not know of this serious impairment. Oh, by the way, the siren, when I went up in the attic, what kind of siren was there? I believe it was a Radio Shack siren, and it had the Tandy Corporation name on there. Well, that's not listed either. So when I tell you these stories, you could tell me, well, Jeff, did she test the system regularly? She sure did. But what difference does it make if she tests the system if you, as the contractor, bypassed or never turned on the built-in features that were designed to detect an impairment, whether it was intentional or accidental? What is your defense? Are you going to plead insanity? Is that your defense? Most licensing laws say that as alarm contractors, we cannot do anything to endanger the welfare, safety, and health of another. And this is exactly what this alarm company did. Alarm companies and central stations are not sympathetic parties. People are not going to feel bad for you. More importantly, you're an expert. You're all experts to different degrees. What is your answer? Why would you not supervise something? What value is there to not supervise? You selected the panel has it built in. Why would you not do it? Because it would create a potential service call that you're going to charge for? Now let's switch this now, put this in the back of your mind for a moment, and let's talk about the change to UL 827. I serve on UL 827. There's about 24 members in UL 827. And during the pandemic, we allowed the central stations to temporarily put operators at home. After that, someone on the committee, a large company, submitted an amendment to UL 827 whereby and now it's permanent. I'm the only one that voted no, by the way, where they allow the operators to work from home. So let me understand this. I can't always get a central station operator to do the right thing in the 4 walls of a central. We're not telling the customers they're monitoring from home. Some of you on the phone don't even know that companies like ADT have been monitoring from home their operators for quite a while now. But let's go back to a subcontract central station. First, what benefit do you have as the alarm dealer to allow an operator to work from home whereby the internet could go down? What if the person's distracted? There are no cell phones in a central station. There's no social media, Snapchat, Facebook, people ringing the doorbell. There's none of that. Now, you've not only agreed to indemnify the central station, but you've now agreed to indemnify them despite the fact that their operators are working from home. And under UL 827, it was never discussed that we have to tell anybody anything. Keep it a secret. Well, I'm also a certified fraud examiner. And I contend, or I posit, that if you conceal a material fact to allow a consumer to make an informed choice, that's deceptive. And if you call 10 of your customers, what are they going to say if you say the following? Guess what? Next month, we're going to start monitoring all your systems from the central station operators' homes. So I did that test with about 5 companies that I consult with, and the customers told me the same thing. No, cancel my service, or worse than that, lower my monthly rate. Or maybe they're both the same. So I'd like you to explain to me how that's safe. Now, under ULA 27, they have a safeguard. They call it a safeguard. I call it nonsense. They're going to put a camera watching the operator while he or she's on shift. But guess what? That will only be looked at after there's a potential claim. So now I now have cases now where the operators took way too long. They're working from home. They were distracted. You don't think I'm going to get copies of their Facebook, their Snapchat, their text messages during the same time that they were supposedly monitoring one of your subscribers' accounts? So there are central stations that will ever provide in-home monitoring. I would advocate to you that you find out who they are. I can tell you one of them. But more importantly, if you're going to stay with your central station, why would you not require them to stop that practice on your subscribers' accounts? How can this benefits the central station? They save money, right? How does it benefit you? It is, to me, it is probably one of the worst choices that the industry has ever seen. I defy anyone to debate this issue with me. I could not debate it because I was outgunned by 23 people, or whatever the number was. All the central stations, they want to make the central station smaller and smaller. And where in your contract, by the way, does it say that you can do you're providing in-home monitoring? I would posit or make it, that it doesn't say in your contract you have the right to do it, but you do it. Now the question is the contract still enforceable? Let's see what happens. Do you want to be that person? Are you advertising that you're providing UL-listed central station monitoring? You're advertising that you're providing in-home monitoring. It's good that you know this because you should be using this as a competitive edge when you go against companies like ADT. To give you an example of how worse this is going to get, how much worse it's going to get, as I understand it, Simply Safe is opening their own central station in Virginia. So let me understand this. The professional and technical community of the alarm industry, the people that know the most, are going to let operators work from their home, but a non-listed product by Simply Safe, and again, I ask that all of you email me, and I'll send you a copy of the article, which you should put on your website, so you have a counter message, are going to have the operators working in a central station. I mean, what's next? You're going to be able to monitor alarms from an Uber as long as you order an XL and aren't driving? Is that the next thing we're doing? How does this distance ourselves from self-monitoring? It is the stupidest idea. It's a stink of stupidity. And anytime, in my opinion, anytime that you put profitability over the safety and security of your subscribers, and there's a loss, you will lose. It's not that much for one customer, but think how much money these central stations are saving. And why are there central stations that won't do it? What do you think? Because they're veterans, they've been around a long time, and they will not try to save money at the expense of our subscribers. What if someone looks at the screen when the screen is open? How do we know what they do with that information? What if the internet goes down while they're trying to process or signals coming through? Who's going to respond and fix that? How much time do they get? So you need to not, I mean, do you want to indemnify a central station that didn't tell you, number one, they're doing in-home monitoring? So if the operator screws up, now not only you have to worry about the central station, you got to worry about these operators and what they're doing in their individual homes or apartments. It's outrageous. We need to advocate against it because right now these cases are starting to come up, and I don't know what your defense is going to be. I didn't know. Show me the studies where it's just as good. Show me the studies that you made less money. I can demonstrate that you're making more money. Would it be an important function to explain that and disclose that to a customer as a security company? I say yes. And if it's so innocuous, why is no one telling anybody? I have dealers as like last week that just learned it for the very first time. Maybe you're one of those dealers. Data bus danger. So about 15 years ago, I started noticing that household combination listed Bergen fire systems were failing as a result of the data bus being impaired in the wall where the fire attacked the data bus took the system down. I want you to think of it this way. We have all these panels that have single data buses. There are some panels that have a second data bus, and we can get into that in a second, but the length of wire for that data bus, which you're not using anyway, is about 3 feet from the panel and conduit. So let's look at the Honeywell series, any panel you want, even the DMP, which has 3 data buses, but they all connect together. I want you to assume that a fire attacks the zone expansion module. I want you to assume a fire attacks the auxiliary power to a 12-volt motion detector, a glass break. Once that shorts, because we know it's going to short, what happens to the radio transmitter? What happens to the wireless receiver? What happens to the system? It fails. In NFPA 72, since the late 80s, it states the following in part. And by the way, if you go to the alarm panel recall channel, you'll see me with a blowtorch testing all these panels. It's almost like a firefighter trying to put a fire out and the hose burns while he's trying to do that. So you're telling me that the Berg part of the system takes the fire down? That's a core fundamental that you can't do, you shall not do. So here's the language. Faults in other systems or equipment shall, mandatory, not affect the operation of the fire alarm system. Faults in other systems or equipment shall not affect the operation of the fire alarm system. Tell me what about that is confusing. You may say, Jeff, the product's listed. I don't care it's listed. You now know these panels are non-conforming. You're installing these systems in the house. A fire starts in the garage, burns into the exit entry door, burns to the exit entry door, hits the keypad. What happens to your system? We're done. You think that Honeywell is going to indemnify you? You think UL is going to indemnify you? Now, ultimately, before looking at the codes and standards, and I have a whole report on this, I actually have a patent on the fix. But more importantly, we got to have a heightened sense of awareness here. Is that I invented it to make alarm systems safer. And quite frankly, I never looked at the codes and standards because I assumed, like you did, that we're good, but we're not. It's almost like when I was growing up, being Jewish, I had friends that had Christmas trees. If one light went out, they all went out. Now, of course, they're isolated. Not picking on any one manufacturer, but if you look at the Honeywell 32FB or the 128 UL 864 combination listed 365 Berg panel, they've got 2 buses. Most people only put 1 keypad in, as you know. They have an ECP isolator, if you know the product line well. That doesn't work regarding a short on any 4-wire smoke or other parts of the system. So did you ever take that into consideration as a licensed contractor? And is that a threat that you're willing to do? Is a data bus wire running through the house, in the walls, in the attic, in the basement? Are you comfortable with that? You shouldn't be. So ultimately, if you take that and you take the 6th edition of UL 985, look at the 5th and 6th edition, you'll have an understanding of why I'm advocating for this. Besides the fact that I have a patent, it's really irrelevant because someone else could try to make a fix as well. UL has made me the chair of the committee to discuss the interpretation of what that language means. I think that after I say it, if you're in the alarm industry for at least a year, you should know what it means. It's also interesting on the Berg side, think about you putting an alarm system in a jewelry store with a one-way radio, for argument's sake. Someone comes in, shorts out the keypad, takes the one-way radio down, we'll know in a day, a week, or a month. If you go back to like an Ademco 289 or Ademco 330, if there was a fire that attacked that momentary reset ratchet relay, that wire, it would throw a short across the normally open tamper switch. And where would you reset that? In the panel. So a panel from the 1970s had more protection on it than a panel in 2022. If you've never been sued, what we're going to ask for are these things. So what I want you to think about doing is get them in order now. First of all, the contracts that you use. Who drafted those contracts? Did you draft them? Are they a copy from other competitors? Either go to Ken Kirschenbaum or there are other lawyers that provide contracts to the industry, and make sure they're up to date. Make sure they're as advanced as the systems you say that you install. If you do home sales, you need to have a separate 3-day right of rescission, a separate notice of cancellation. It's federal law. In addition to that, you should have a completion statement. Your work orders that you use should have protective language in the back of the work orders, because if it's white and has nothing on there, they potentially could sue you based on the work order. What about your annual NFPA testing forms? Has anyone ever seen any language on that form that protects you in any way? There's nothing. So you sign it. Good luck getting the AHJ to sign it and the subscriber. Now, there's an argument that you didn't properly inspect, test, and maintain the system. And you say, Jeff, give me an example. Okay, I'll give you an example. How many of you are doing sensitivity testing on conventional smoke detectors? How many of you have a sensitivity tester versus a functional test? So you did a functional test on 20-year-old smoke detectors. You didn't do the code mandated sensitivity test. You don't even realize what that is. You don't know what the testing cycle is, how much time you can have between when you do a sensitivity test and when you can delay it for several years, up to 5 years, depending on what version of 72 we're talking about. Sensitivity testing is a requirement. I don't really care if the AHJ doesn't know it. You know it. I understand it costs more money. I also understand that system sensor, I3 smoke detector that has an infrared reader that you can get sensitivity. But those aren't the smoke detectors you're testing. So I would advocate to you that if you do inspections, I understand it costs more money, but you will make it back. And more importantly, you will do the code compliant requirement. Now, sensitivity testing is not required for households. But if you had I3 conventional smoke detectors in there, and I'm not saying that would be something that you use, or you would be able to do that and quantify that. No disadvantage to having documentation. And documentation that you can actually read would be helpful. Training to your people. We're going to ask for the training files. We're going to ask for the employee files. We're going to ask for your contracts, your work orders, your invoices. And if you think that if you say test the system regularly is going to limit your liability, think again. It means nothing. And in fact, if you think it means something, Alan, just blaming you for a second or focusing on you because I can see you, I'm going to check how many times you test your system. If you check it every week. So the realistic issue is that we are putting ourselves at high risk when we install these systems. Think about it. Let's assume you install a smoke detector, and Alan, I'm going to let you charge me $940. If there is a fire and someone is seriously injured or burned, and it costs you 40 or 50 or 60, look at the risk we're taking on. So with fire, as you know, either do it right or don't do it. If a customer does not want the right system, don't install the wrong system. If, for example, you can do a supplemental system, you recommend 20 smoke detectors, and the customer declines 17 as a cost consideration, and you have a letter from the AHJ approving 3 smokes, write it on your agreement. Recommended 20, customer declined 17 as a cost consideration, because what will the customer say? Oh, Alan told me I only needed 3. And had he told me I needed 20, of course, to protect my family, absolutely. And that's what they're going to say. You, of course, have a problem because in your agreement, which rightfully so says there are no verbal understandings changing or modifying any of the terms of the agreement, right? So you can't now say, well, yeah, he said that, but you've got to go with the agreement. And by the way, What's the range of a smoke detector? We all know it's 900 square feet, but we also know that unless the smoke reaches it, it's not going off, right? So when you write your agreement, what about writing something like install 10 photoelectronic smoke detectors designed by the equipment manufacturer to detect smoke? Why do I say designed by the equipment manufacturer to detect smoke? Because we didn't design them, did we? We install and test them. And if the smoke doesn't reach them, if a window's open or a fan's going or a door's closed, it's going to be late. So if we have a person that potentially is impaired, we have a person that is taking medication or both, or is handicapped, they're not able to get out. NFPA 72 assumes that people can get out. If you have someone in a home and you learn that there's an older person there or someone with a disability and you can comply with HIPAA, what would be the disadvantage of telling the central station itself that there's special instructions that someone in the house cannot self-rescue? Any disadvantage to doing that? Of course not. The more information, the better. Let's jump into something else. What if you're in a situation where you have the system set up for cancel abort? Alarm goes off. Let's assume you got a keypad in the master bedroom. Alarm goes off. What's the first thing the customer does? They jump up, they run to the keypad, they turn it off. Meanwhile, there's someone that just broke in. Now, tell me in your contract where it says that you had the right to do that, where it says that you were going to do that, and how that provided safety and security to the subscriber. I understand CPO-1 and CPO-2. I served on either CPO-1 and 2 or one of them. The point is you cannot put these instructions into the account without the knowledge, consent, and authority of the subscriber. And more importantly, why would you have that? Let the central station do their job. That's what you're paying them for. I do not believe in cancel abort. I also don't believe in swing or shutdown. Forget that it's not listed. It's not recognized by you all. Why would you do swing or shutdown? You're worried about a runaway condition to a central station? Really? Forget about swing or shutdown. We've had burglars break in, run through the premises, break in the roof, run through the premises, leave, police come, no signs of forcible entry. Then they come back, Alan, and nothing goes off. So the choices you make are mission critical. Another thing that we do in our alarm contracting practice, in the work order, we write, we offer the customer a full system inspection. It's a yes or no answer each time we visit the home to service it. Any disadvantage to doing that? And by the way, we charge for that. It's about $300 and up. So let me understand this. We were there 11 times over the past 6 years. And each and every time we came, you declined a full system inspection. Does that help us or does that hurt us? It's huge.
It hurts.
It hurts us. If we have the work order that says they declined the full system inspection, it helps us, right? Because we can't force them to do something, right?
Right.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever had a situation where anyone's ever questioned your price, that anyone's ever told you that, hey, I don't want to spend the money. Of course you have. Customers that don't want to spend the money, that type of mystery meat doesn't get into these cases because there's no evidence of it in our agreements. Sometimes carbon monoxide detectors. Okay, please don't call them gas detectors. I've had cases where they said, oh, we told them it was a gas detector and they had a natural gas explosion, didn't go off. Yeah, it's a carbon monoxide detector. Same thing, carbon monoxide detector designed by the manufacturer to detect carbon monoxide, but it's high level carbon monoxide. And what's the range of a carbon monoxide detector? What standards apply to carbon monoxide? Those are two examples. How many parts per million does it take to activate a carbon monoxide detector? If your technicians do not know the answer to that, if your salespeople do not know the answers, I'm assuming they haven't read the book and they don't have the book. So let's talk about it. The range of a carbon monoxide detector is right at my nose, right where it is. There is no range. It takes 70 parts per million for 60 to 240 minutes sustained at the no range sensor before it will go off. Some people are affected by low levels of carbon monoxide. And there are a couple of manufacturers you probably know about that do that, but it's high level carbon monoxide. And at 400 parts per million, it takes 15 minutes. The standards that apply are, the original standard was UL 2034, UL 2075 is the standard, and we have NFPA 720. But what's the difference between a UL 2034 detector and a UL 2075? So my favorite sensor, and I'm not advertising for them, but system sensor, the 1224T. Why do I like that sensor? It's got a built-in power supervision relay. That's huge, right? You disconnect power, power gets disconnected, the carbon monoxide is silent. With the power supervision relay, God forbid someone should take the trouble contacts and tie them in series with the resistor. That would be nice, but how many of them that have I seen where they don't even connect to the trouble contacts? Any problem in doing that? Can you say that you installed the system and you completed it without connecting to the trouble contacts? You think an LED about the size of a grain of rice is going to be enough of a warning? Of course not. So you need to know these standards. You need to know what the parts mean. You need to realize there's no range. People don't know. If you put one in the basement, you write basement carbon monoxide detector, zone 14. That's great. What is that implicitly or explicitly telling the customer? They're protected. They're not. So carbon monoxide, smoke detectors, radioactive heat detectors, these are all crucial. And again, audibility. What have you done to verify audibility? Where do you go to find that answer? You go into 72 and you're expected as a licensed contractor to know that. I understand that 80% of what I see out there is wrong, but that doesn't mean that we have to duplicate it. I understand that people don't want to pay for the extra audible appliances. I understand that there are smoke detectors with reversing relays that activate a self-contained sounder. But I also understand we have the other population of equipment that doesn't do that. And you have to be able to quantify the audibility. If you're connecting to an existing system for monitoring only, and you see defects and irregularities in the system, are you going to just keep it quiet? Because you know, if you say something, and God forbid it should cost them anything, what are they probably going to do? Probably cancel, right? So what I would advocate for you is no work is better than bad work. I defend alarm companies. I go after alarm companies. I'm trying to give you inside information to steer you clear from claims. It's not 100% guarantee. There's no such thing as 100% security in a free society. But we as experts, no one is not going to believe you're an expert. If you say you're not an expert, they're going to ask you the next question. Do you think you're more of an expert than the customer? Of course they do. So if you put someone selling, if you're not selling the systems yourself, and you put someone in a position of trust to sell the systems, and I know it's hard to get with them, I get it. Make sure they understand the criticality of what they're doing. A security survey and a needs analysis. These are core fundamentals that every alarm system sale or proposal needs to include. What are they? I'm going to give you my explanation, and you do something different, and you call it something different, or you don't do it at all. So a security survey is an exhaustive search of all risks and vulnerabilities. That's what we're looking for. And then we're going to take our education, skill, knowledge, training, experience, and apply that and try to design a system. A needs analysis is the motivation for getting the alarm. What if someone told you, I'm being stalked by my ex-boyfriend. He's threatened to kill me. Do you think just an alarm system is going to do it? It's not. So you now have, as a security consultant, it's interesting, ADT says, we're not security consultants. What are they? You look at the business card, it says security consultant. So why would ADT say they're not security consultants? Because the security consultant is held to a higher standard. If a subscriber tells you, or a potential customer, we're being stalked, there's domestic violence, you need to tell them to get contracted within the agreement. We highly recommend that you contact a certified protection professional or a security expert, because it's not just about electronic security. We know it's also about physical security. And I've had cases where the alarm company was told, all I need is a warning, I'm being stalked. And then the perpetrator came to the house and he got to the first floor. What's the first thing he did? He cut the phone lines. Now the system had a telephone line monitor, but in that particular case, the modem was pumping out voltage regardless if there was dial tone or not. So that didn't trigger the alarm. Then he walked by, broke the glass break detector didn't go off. Then he walked by the motion, it was stay shunted versus night stay. Then he went upstairs and fired 4 shots and killed the wife and killed her boyfriend, who was like there for protection. So you say, Jeff, what difference would it make if the alarm had gone off? I agree with you, except for one thing. Her boyfriend was a trained marksman. Have you ever gone to prison and visit your relatives and notice how the guards are up high? It's a joke. He had this guy at the phone lines. When we used to monitor phone lines, we used to just run an extra loop out there. Forget the line voltage, just cut the loop. And on the other side of the NID, the network interface device, was the control panel. And that case was a terrible case where 4 children witnessed the murder of their mother and this guy who was there because the father of the case, the father in the family had previously died in an unrelated car accident. The alarm company technicians testified he just wanted to warn. Now, why didn't the glass break detector go off? Because they had it facing away from the glass. And it was a wireless glass break in the basement that's not temperature controlled. So when it was cold, not only was it not facing the glass, but I couldn't get it to go off. When it warmed up, guess what happened? It worked fine, but she's dead already. The day of the attack, she armed and disarmed her system 27 times. So this kind of preliminary steps, it's not a one size fits all when you're doing this kind of work. If you're doing a jewelry store and you don't know what UL 687 is, you need to get out of it doing those. What's UL 687? It's the standards for safes. If a jeweler wants any alarm because UL certification is less than 40,000, maybe less than 20,000 UL certificates, he wants an alarm. He doesn't have enough insurance. He has a loss. Who's he coming after? You. He relied on the alarm system. He can't afford the insurance. And you, of course, have your protective language. No jewelry store that you do should not have, has to have a 2-way radio that's polled in accordance with the old AA standard. 5-minute polling, 300-second polling. And if the line goes down when the system's armed, please, it's an alarm. It's not a trouble. I've had too many comm fails that are considered troubles. In addition to that, if you do a jewelry store, you need to recommend in writing in the contract to have yes and no questions, secondary system. Any disadvantage to offering a secondary system in a jewelry store that might have $8 million of jewelry and no insurance or insurance? Why do you need to know UL 687? Because you need to find out what he has in the safe and if the safe that he has meets the standard of care commensurate with the amount of money he states he has. So for example, a TL15 safe is great for 15 minutes tool attack on the door. The rest of the walls of the safe are not covered. Did you know that? A TLTRTX is a safe that's tool resistant, bomb resistant, and torch resistant for 15, 30, or 60 minutes. If he's got 2 safes side by side, have them connected. Are you using regular door contacts for the safe? Well, you can do that if you're using the old proximity alarms, but if you're doing EVD, electronic vibration detection, you've got to use either a Magnosphere high security contact, I like those contacts, or the old central triple bias contacts. But what's the purpose of the contact in the safe? It's not for the perpetrator opening the safe unless they have the drill point. It's so we can verify the damn safe door is closed when they arm the system. So you can put an alarm system in a jewelry store, front door, back door, bunch of motion detectors. You got a motion covering the safe up against a piece of drywall. Good luck if that motion is going to detect anything when they burn to the back of it. And time, just like in fire, is all they need. With enough time, you can get through any safe or vault. So when we design systems, just like when you design systems, there are 3 elements that we're looking at in the crime triangle. One is motive, one is intent, and one is opportunity. The one thing that we can impact on is opportunity. Critical. We take the opportunity away. They cannot spend the time because they're worried about a serious felony or felonies being charged against them. And that's the way we help lower their loss potential. There's so many jewelry cases I've had where the jewelers are grossly underinsured. And the alarm systems I mean, they could have just very basic systems and they get in through the ceiling. You know, years ago, they used to cut the phone lines. Now they rip the panel off the wall. It's different. Don't be putting a Vista 20 in there unless the cabinet is a mercantile cabinet. Realize that cabinet needs a sheet metal shock sensor. Remember the central ones, the built-in batteries, right? When the battery goes dead, it opens the protective circuit, tampered, and you got to protect the protection. You've got to do that. Do not install a glorified household alarm in a jewelry store. I'm looking for the listing compliance. I'm looking for defects and irregularities, and you're looking for recurring revenue. Charge them more money. I don't care if the insurance company says just put an alarm in that's monitored by a central station, because they're going to be suing you. If they pay the jeweler $1 million, for argument's sake, they're going to subrogate against you and try to get their money. And there'll be some expert, could be me, that said that you failed to meet the standard of care, that you knew, should have known, or certainly should have recognized that the system wasn't adequate in the context of its environment. If the customer doesn't want to pay for the right system, walk away. No work is better than bad work. I advocate you do more work and do less work and charge more money than get these customers that expose you to a tremendous amount of liability for what? And again, the insurance industry is dumb. Remember how the insurance industry used to require UL listed systems? Now they just require an alarm system. So it's all about methodology. It's about having policies and procedures that are commensurate with the risk. And whatever you have in your file, whatever you have in your policy procedures, whatever you tell your central station is all discoverable. So if it's discoverable, let's give them the right answers, because all of these cases are very, very fact specific. If you're using, for example, I know we're running down with time. I see it in your eyes, Dale. Because I'm so shy and introverted. If you are installing latching panic buttons with that key reset, if it stays latched and no one ever resets, then what? Make a restore a high supervisory. So in 30 minutes, if McDonald's does not reset the holdup, they start getting calls. Too many cases, they press the button's already been pressed. It was pressed 6 months ago. Supervise those holdup buttons. Do not adjust the loop response time. A holdup button is 40 milliseconds. It's not 750. It's not a swinger issue, okay? I've got guys that put 750 on there with certain products that allow you to change it, and the person hits the button and never goes off because they got to hold their hand on it while they're getting attacked. Don't be that person. And also, never install holdups that are trigger an audible alarm. I had a case where someone did that. It was done inadvertently. And when the person hit the holdup button, I have the video, the guy got shot in the heart. Terrible case. And the guy, they took my deposition. They said, Mr. Zwirn, did he have to press the panic button? And my answer was no. And I don't think he would have had he known it would have triggered an audible alarm above the door that the guy walked out when he shot this guy. So people are more sophisticated. Legal claims are becoming more sophisticated. Experts are becoming more sophisticated. My goal here is to give you a succinct overview of what maybe you're not doing and what maybe you need to focus on. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the things that you implement now, I mean, the problems that you have didn't happen overnight, and they're not going away overnight. The goal is to help minimize. We can't eliminate it. Training is crucial. And when I look at the training for these national companies, it's lead abatement, on the job, which is who knows what's going on. And then on top of that, it's 10 and 30-hour OSHA standards. Nothing about what I call alarm science, nothing about the fundamentals that people in the industry that have been around a long time know about. No more fundamentals. Look into the back of the alarm truck and you'll see a big roll of double stick tape. That's what it's about. Oh, by the way, on the transmitters you use for doors and windows, are you using listed transmitters? Are they copycats? And what if that transmitter goes bad? And what if someone comes through the window? And what if a child is taken and we determine that you installed a non-listed transmitter? What's your defense? It worked until it failed. My goal is to give you insight of behind the scenes of what I get in cases that are made against alarm companies or what I go after in alarm companies. Ultimately, the elements, the things that we're talking about are ways of trying to minimize the risk. A lot of companies, they don't do any of these things and they just hope everything works out. I can tell you that it doesn't always work that way. You could have a technician that you love, is great. He's an important witness in your case, and now he's a competitor. And he says, Rich told me that, to just bypass it. Rich told me this. Now that's your witness, okay? I know you've never lost an employee, Rich, but in the case you ever do, employees, depending how you treat them, you never know what they're going to say. So remember that everything is fact specific. So every part of the puzzle is going to be, one part's going to be the work orders. One part's going to be the invoices. One part's going to be the contract. One part's going to be, do you have your central station? Hopefully they're not working from home, but you'll check that after this seminar, please. Do they notify on the test fail? Or do you try to do it yourself? If they notify, you have a recording, you have voice logger recording. If they notify, the clock of getting it fixed is on the customer. If you notify, where's my record? You may forget to notify. Notify them on everything and anything, and don't allow fire alarm systems in new construction to be put on test for 10 years because they don't know when the construction is going to get done. It's funny, but I've had cases. Want to put the system on test between 6 at night and 6 in the morning. For how long? Well, how long can you do it for? 24 years. Okay, go ahead and do that. Then there's a fire at 6:01 from a blowtorch. And you know what happens? Every alarm signal possible goes off, but no one gets notified. And if you shut down a fire alarm system, you're supposed to call who? The AHJ. You didn't do that either. So I'm giving you somewhat magnified, but this is serious business. And I'd rather you be equipped with these tools than have to wait until something happens. Insurance, license compliance, training, aggressive policies and procedures that put the onus on the subscriber. When I sell or when I propose a household fire alarm system, I recommend in writing a sprinkler suppression system. Any disadvantage to doing that? Of course not. Because if I have a sprinkler suppression system, what's going to be the difference between life safety with or without it? There's not been many people that have died when there's a professionally installed and operational smoke detection system and sprinkler system. If you write something on your website, you may want to consider language like this, but again, get it blessed by your lawyer. All services provided by Rich's Alarm Company are subject to the terms, conditions, and limitations of the Rich Alarm Company installation and monitoring contract. Any disadvantage to writing that everywhere? Of course not. So when the lawyer pulls up your website and cross-examines you on it, you'll have some language, but you got to back it up. You can't just put language in there and not do the right thing. And if you think you're going to hide it from me, good luck on that one. I'll find it. And if I determine that you did something deceptive, that's called fraud and that's an intentional tort. And guess what? That's not covered by insurance. So we try to do in the alarm industry, we try to do the right thing, the professionals, even when no one's watching. My goal is to give you a wake-up call. I have cases in Ohio. I have cases across the country. If I didn't care about the alarm industry, I would just sit back and wait. I want you to survive. I want you to help your customers, but we're going to have to get rigid in the things that we used to do without even thinking about it. It was never an option. It was a full perimeter system. It always was done in a certain way. It's not done that way. And as we lower the standards, the risk increase, whether it's a central station risk or it's indemnification risk, and we're still getting the $30 a month. We're not charging enough money. I agree with you. So think about these things. You can get me at Jeff Zwirn, ZWIRN, at alarmexpert.com, where you can look up Alarm Expert. I'm glad to send you the articles that I've written against Simply Safe, that I've written against a company called Connected. We need a counter message. We need to distinguish ourselves from these people that are doing this kind of stuff. And we need to help the industry survive by working together through associations like the Ohio Association. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer them if we have time to answer them, and I hope that you enjoyed it.
Tom Donaldson, I have a question about commercial fire systems. So often you get the general contractor who comes in, you're not getting to deal with the end user. And they immediately want you to sign their agreement, which negates everything in your agreement. You say walk away from that.
Absolutely, because think about it. Let's take it out of this situation. A lot of guys do school districts, right? They want you to sign an AIA contract, right? You're wide open. Now you do a school district, you put some panic buttons in, there's an active shooter, and the average active shooter event takes about 2 to 3 minutes. You have no contract. You have insurance, but no contract. We need to start changing the behavior of what customers demand. Do you think the contractor is doing work without a contract? I understand it may be a big part of your business. The problem is that we have no protections for you. And you could do everything right, get sued and win, and it could be $1 million in legal fees. You may have insurance, but what happens next year? Are your rates going to go up? I will not sign an AIA contract. I will not work without a contract. And anyone that does work without a contract, it's not worth it. How much money are you making on that? Work with people that will sign the contract. It's not worth it. And of course,
I don't disagree with you on this, but there is just the overriding fact that I took that approach when it was first taught to me. I won't do anything with a contractor that requires me to sign their contract. I just won't do it. However, it also means that my company would probably be worth 5 times what it is today if I hadn't gotten it sued out of existence. So the reality of that going back and forth, there's definitely a double-edged sword there. That is a lot of business. And when you say we've got to turn around and figure out a way to change the customer's mindset, our customer in these situations is the general contractor, and their attorneys are advising them the other way. The only way to do it would be to boycott their industry and refuse to put it in fire. I'm not certain that's even legal to talk about on this.
No, I think what it boils down to, it's really a business. I agree with you. I think it's a business decision. There's plenty of business. What book of business do you want? And you can get $50 million of insurance. My biggest problem with these contracts is not only about liability, but it's also about when something goes wrong. So for example, I have a dealer in New Jersey that was contracted to do school districts, and he signed the AIA contract and he couldn't get parts, but he did spend $200,000 out of his own pocket for what he could get. And now the job's delayed. They're now penalizing the guy $500 a day because he can't install the system. He can't get parts. The AIA, I mean, this is, now you may say, Jeff, it's a freak of nature, but it's happening more and more. I think that if you take on that business and you're willing to accept the consequences of that decision, it's just a business decision. I prefer to walk away from that business, but that's me. I may be a little more independent than you because I do other things. I understand we're not changing their behavior. And sometimes you can speak to your legal counsel and there can be some negotiation, but these contracts, I mean, they're buying your soul. Forget about the liability and the penalties. I mean, right now I'm helping try and defend them, but they're threatening $500 a day, going up to $1,000 a day, going up to $2,500 a day. It's ridiculous. So I understand what you're saying. Maybe you do that business and maybe you take the risk, increase your insurance, do something called risk transfer the risk to the carrier, and you just deal with it. The biggest problem I've seen is not really liability, it's about getting paid, right? There's someone that comes in, say you didn't do the job right, and there's a fight. And that's really what I'm involved in more than the actual liability part for these type of GC jobs. They just don't want to pay. So, you know, you don't have the attorney's fee shifting provision. You don't have exclusive jurisdiction and venue. I think it's a business decision, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it, but you need to know what the consequences are going to be if you do it and something goes wrong. You're wide open. And some people say, well, I have insurance for that. Okay. So get a lot of insurance and do that business. I personally would not recommend it. I mean, I just would, but I understand the reality is you got bills to pay. You need, you know, you got customers calling and the GC gives you a lot of business. I completely get it. And it's a balancing act. Certain businesses will sign whatever you put in front of them, and certain businesses will never sign.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Any answers?
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. I'm gonna access this this recording. I want a lot of people in my company to listen to it. That was just a great presentation, Jeff. It scared the hell out of me. So I think we have a lot of work to do. That's all I could tell
Listen,
you.
we all do, Alan. And I mean, we offer training, to companies. There are other people that offer training to companies. We have Alarm Science Boot Camp. If you're going to let them listen to this, Alan, make sure they do it, because if they listen to it and they know it, that's okay. I think what this information does is I think this information gives the installer a better understanding of their own responsibility. These are your ambassadors, right? They're doing the work. I recommend, for example, when you finish a job, take a picture of the inside of the panel. Keep that central station test record forever.
Right.
Because, it's not about scaring. This is what I do. And I also defend companies. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to not to be afraid, but be aware. It's better to be aware, focus on the awareness, because I know that if they see something, they'll start saying something. Every system cannot pass inspection. It just doesn't work that way. And people are doing it that way because they know they're not going to get paid if they don't. So I appreciate the feedback. I'm glad to do another one of these webinars, or, we do other things, other people do it, other things. But the goal is we got the book, give every one of your technicians a copy of NFPA 72. Become a member. You'll save a couple dollars. Train them on 72. It's going to save you money. It's going to make you money, because now they know what to look for. Calibrate your meters. Give everybody a sound level meter. If somebody doesn't want to pay for it, run.
Right.
Give it to Rich. Give the work to Rich. He'll take it. Just kidding. Maybe I'm not. I think the new mantra could be the alarm industry. Some in the alarm industry believe that if they lie, we should swear to them. We're not doing that. Ohio Association is not doing that. I've seen a lot of good alarm companies in Ohio, great companies in Ohio. They do it the right way. The panels are gorgeous. The work is great. We have to distinguish ourselves, and we can do it because we're saving lives every day. People just don't know it. But what we do, what we're in this business for, is we're saving lives, helping protect property. It's just a matter of trying to balance that.
Jeff, is your book still available as well?
It is. It is available. So I have an online version they can buy, or they can buy the actual hardcover book. I advocate, not because it's my book, but any book. Get one for each one of your installers. I'll personally sign it. Let them read it. And then there's case studies in there. There's 16 tests in there. They don't have an idea what's out there, what's going on around them. They know what you're telling them to do. And these books, becomes a resource for them. The more education, the more they can stay clear of. They're your eyes and ears on the job. If they see something, God, it could make a difference between a loss and not a loss. Because before reading the book, for example, they had no idea that there's any risk at all.
Right.
So I'm glad to work out a deal with Ohio members. It's a hardcover book. It's 334 pages. There are color photos from cases. There's, panels and case studies and tests and all the things, the 25 principles of alarm science. And little by little, there'll be hopefully some change. Because, it's great if you call me and say, Jeff, I heard your seminar and now I need you as my expert. That's great. But if I can eliminate any of that through this webinar, I want to do that.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's our job to really, people say, oh, just get lots of insurance. Well, no, that's not the answer. I agree with you. The answer is do it right. And then the alarm will go off when it's supposed to go off and you'll save the lives. That's what we're really trying to do. is to
Yeah.
do the right.
Yeah, and listen, if everyone on the call today designed a fire alarm system, we can guarantee they're gonna get out. Could not
Yeah.
guarantee, but at least through association effort, for example, I called an association in Louisiana, I'm looking for an alarm company. I only got 2 responses, looking for a company to take over for existing home invasion system there. You know, the professionalism that the members have really should be leveraged. I'm not going to recommend anybody that doesn't understand the fundamentals. You know, I have one company I called and I went to their website. The panel's not grounded. They have a picture of a panel. It's not grounded. All the resistors in the panel, you know, no line seizure. I mean, it's just, that's on their website. That's how disconnected they are, pun intended, from what the professional and technical part of the community, of the industry should be doing.
Yeah,
Well, they definitely don't know what they don't know, that's for sure.
Correct.
All right, any last questions? We got to let everybody have time to get back to work.
Got it. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Dale.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
great.
Thanks, guys. Take
Great
care.
presentation.
Thank you.
It's wonderful.
Thank you very much.
We'll have this up on the website within a day.
Thanks, Dale. Thanks, everybody. Take care of yourselves.
Take care.
Bye-bye.